Hello, hello. Welcome to the Shifter Studio. I am your host, Coach C. I assist parents struggling with stress and family discord and assist them on their journey or shift back to parental peace. We have reached day 9 of our 10-part series, Navigating Parenthood. And as promised, we are going to see this thing through. We have 10 parts, and we will have our 10th part tomorrow. The topics that we have discussed over the past 9 days, with today being day 9: the fear of safety, health and wellness, education and academic pressure, technology and screen time, peer pressure and socialization, mental health awareness, balancing work and family life, financial concerns. Today we will be discussing identity and diversity. We'll be talking about the challenges of raising children in a diverse world, where these topics come up, sometimes are confusing for children, sometimes are confusing for parents. And how do we help our children navigate and navigate ourselves these oftentimes confusing topics? Race, ethnicity, gender identity, and sexual orientation. How do we raise our children to be mindful of helping to build a world that fosters inclusivity, empathy, and cultural competence? Yes, some heavy stuff, right? So, if anything that is shared resonates with you, makes you think, makes you have an aha moment, a memory flashback, or annoys you, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And let me just share this little caveat. Again, this is a very much a surface touching on these topics. These topics are very heavy and require a whole lot more than you're going to get in the 15 minutes that we'll be together today, right? So this is just a kickoff point. This is just something to think about, kind of like a preparation so that you know what's coming down the road. This is just the flashing hazard light, right? So now you go and do much more research than what you're going to get here, right? So that you are very much prepared. So let's start by speaking about race versus ethnicity. Those are two terms that are oftentimes confusing for children and sometimes confusing for adults as well, to be honest. So let's take a look at the definitions of the two terms first before we talk about the confusion around them and how our children may find themselves having to interact and have questions about their interactions. So, race versus ethnicity. They are not the same thing. Race is more biological. It describes the physical traits that one has, and these traits are inherited from your parents, your grandparents, your great great grandparents, etc. These are physical traits that you have because of your family line that had them before you. Ethnicity is your cultural identity. You learn that. You learn that as you grow. It comes from within your culture or your family, but you learn it. You're not born with it. You're not born with a culture. You learn your culture as you live amongst the people within your culture. You learn about the foods, the songs, the mores, the norms, right? You're not born with them. You're not born with that knowledge. It's not intrinsic. It's learned. So that's the difference between the two. So if your child comes home and has a question about race versus ethnicity, that's an easy way to separate the two, an easy way to define the two so that they understand. Race is made up of physical features, and ethnicity are the things that you learn about the people who you claim in your tribe, in your social group. So if we're striving to build a world of inclusivity, right? And I come from a neighborhood that, let's say, I come from a neighborhood when I was a child, I would say 99.5 of the individuals that lived on my block, for example, shared a race with me. They were African American, right? Now, I attended school, however, my middle school was it was diverse, but it was mostly had Caucasian students. So, how, as I'm a child navigating living in an almost exclusively African American community, attending school in a multi multiracial community with the majority of the participants, or rather the majority of the folks attending, were Caucasian. How do I navigate that? Do I have questions? Do I have fears? Do I have concerns? Did someone look at me? Did someone say anything about me? Did someone point at me and, make a comment about my hair because it's different from theirs, my nose because it's different from theirs, my skin color because it's different from theirs, right? Where sometimes the child's behavior can be bordering on racism, but also bordering on bullying. And so, one way to make sure that your children are safe, remember we talked about safe spaces existing in the home and school. Now, if your child goes to school and they come home, and they come home one day, they come home the next day, they come home the next day, and there is a complaint around anything having to do with, anything, but for this conversation, anything having to do with racial problems or strife, or questions that are like repeated questions, almost like someone is being interrogated, please, please, please speak up. Please do not allow your child to carry this burden by themselves. They don't have to carry the things that heavy by themselves. They don't. It's not conducive to them growing up and feeling certain about their world. We talked about young people having agency and making decisions, etc. This is not necessarily the time where you give them all the agency in the world. You at least have to provide the foundation, right? Provide the foundation of what's the difference between race and ethnicity. Who are we? So if I'm a parent, who are we? Who am I? What is my ethnicity? What is your ethnicity? Right? Have those conversations at home so that when your child goes out into the world, when your child goes back to school, when your child goes to day camp, right? They have a better handle on how to have that conversation, how to answer certain questions that they may be faced with. Gender identity. So we know that, let's say, even 20 years ago, when someone had a child, went to the hospital, had a baby, that baby was a boy or a girl. And you brought the baby home and you raised it and it remained a boy or a girl, right? Even if the sexual orientation of the person changed as they got older, the gender identity stayed the same. Well, that's not the case today. That is not the case today. Our children have a right, according to school district policy, to identify in the gender that they feel is their gender. Everyone's birth gender is not who they see themselves at, rather their gender identity. Everyone's birth gender identity will not be the same as when they become a teenager or a young adult. So, as I was saying earlier, you have the baby at the hospital, you bring it home, it's a boy or a girl, and it remains that for the remainder of their life. With gender identity issues, you have someone who may have been born one gender but identifies as another gender. And this can come with changing of names, changing of style of dress, changing of hair. So, absolutely, you may have a child that comes home and says, well, mommy, woman, why does that woman look like that? Well, what do you mean? Look like what? Have the dialogue, the conversation. Don't just try to hurry up and smack an answer on it just to be answered. There are so many young people who are clinically depressed, experiencing feelings of worthlessness. Parents have turned on them. So there's a lot involved gender identity, with gender identity and sexual orientation. There is a lot going on, and it's starting even younger. So, I mean, as a family, well, I should say, typically the norms are set by the head of the household. Being inclusive of your children can make a great difference on how your children succeed. We talked about the importance of working with our children to help them build a world that believes in inclusivity as opposed to discrimination, right? We are going to call you in as opposed to call you out. We're going to welcome you as opposed to ostracize you, right? These are the behaviors that we want to work with our children on to see what they're feeling, right? Again, caveat number 2 for this session: we don't force children to do either thing. You may have the child that is the shining star on a spelling bee and the oratorical contest and gets up in front of anybody, anywhere, and does the thing. And when it comes to sexual orientation, gender identity, race, culture, ethnicity, all of the, and on these things, they may be quiet as church mice. It's okay. It's okay. It really is. So, how do we help our children navigate these worlds where things are different than when we were children? Education, education, education. Information, information, information. But make sure it's from a credible source, right? Too many times folks just run to the internet and put something in the site, and the first site that pops up, boom, boing, and then, okay, I get all the information, and you really just took this from someone's personal page. This wasn't, this was not research based. This was not peer reviewed research. This was, I'm looking for an answer and I'm taking the first answer. With your children, prepare to have real conversations around these items, right? They may themselves be experiencing some confusion in one of the 4 areas that has been mentioned, right? We don't want to make the confusion worse by adding misinformation or by speaking to our children in a way that our emotions are the most forceful part of the communication, right? because we know that we as parents, we have the ability to control the narrative, so to speak. We have the power. If that's what we want to look at, we have the power that we can control communication between ourselves and our children, and we can control how much or how little these things are looked at as a viable conversation. In your household, make sure it's the norm that things are discussed, even the awkward things, even the uncomfortable things. Now, for sexual orientation, obviously, as I just said, all families are unique. So you decide when you're ready to have that conversation. However, please be aware that in most instances, what children don't find out in the home, they will find out in the streets. I'm not even going to say in the health classes, but in the streets or from a peer conversation, they will find out what they feel they need to find out. So, what we have to do as parents is give them what we anticipate them needing. Then, if they need more, they can come back for more. But yeah, we have to center space for our children to ask all the awkward and challenging questions that they need to ask in order to be on track towards building a more inclusive world. And with that being said, folks, as I said, this was just a surface introduction to these topics, right? There's no way that in 15, 20 minutes that I could call myself having concluded anything. But now the baton has been passed to you, parents. Now it's time for you to open up the dialogue around these topics with your children. Don't wait. Don't wait for these topics. Don't wait until they come to you. By then, in many instances, they have had bouts of depression. They're fearful. They're, not academically excelling as they used to, right? Sometimes there's a physical reasons for these things, and sometimes it's a purely mental. You have to have the conversation with your children so that you can ascertain what it is and see what type of support your child needs. But you won't be able to do that unless you have built trust, which will build the capacity for having those types of conversations. So ultimately, although today was about race, ethnicity, gender identity, and sexual orientation, it always circles back to relationship building, communication, and trust between ourselves as parents and our children. Where are you in terms of trust and relationship building with your children? Are you being an active listener when they come to you and ask you about one of these 4 topics? Hopefully you are. Hopefully you're engaged in active listening. And I'm going to say again, if anything that I have said resonates with you, makes you think, gives you an aha moment, annoys you, please like, subscribe, and share the channel. Our channel, as a repeat, our channel is Just Shift Coaching. That's whole one word, Just Shift Coaching. That is our YouTube channel. Go on YouTube and view the past 8 videos that we have done, 1 video a day. I'm so proud of us. Tomorrow is day 10. I think I might throw us a little party. All right, guys, take care.